When most people think about Stranger Things, they usually think about monsters, secret government labs, kids with superpowers, and kids on bikes. But the real heart of the show lies in the Byers family. The Byers are messy, they're overwhelmed, they're always one step away from losing each other, and they're some of the most mischaracterized characters within the show. And that's exactly why they matter to the themes of the show itself. To begin, we're going to talk about Will Byers, the kid who's too soft. Except, he's really not. From the very first season, while he's missing, Will Byers gets labeled as fragile pretty early on. We see it with the people bullying him, adults around him, and sometimes even by the audience. The thing is, Will is way stronger than people around him give him credit for. From the very first episode, we see that Will is a sensitive and creative kid. We know that he likes art, Dungeons and Dragons, and fantasy. And in Hawkins, it's established that already makes him different. When the Demogorgon is after him, we don't see him just run and hide. He gets a gun and is ready to shoot whatever is after him, which to me doesn't read as a kid who is weak at all. And when Will gets trapped in the Upside Down, he doesn't fall apart. He hides, he thinks, and he listens. Yes, he's scared. He's just a little boy, but he does what he can. When he uses the Christmas lights to talk to Joyce, that's not panic. That was an act of survival. He's a literal child, completely alone, and he still finds a way to reach his mom from a completely different world. And then in season 2, when we see Will possessed by the Mind Flayer, he still fights back. He's in constant pain. He's having episodes flashing back to the Upside Down, but he still keeps warning everyone of the bad things to come. He keeps trying to protect them from what could hurt them. We also know that he's a very strong emotional character. He's dealing with his trauma. He's dealing with the loss of his childhood, and he has strong emotional turmoil over his emerging sexuality in the 1980s, no less. Will has a kind of strength that doesn't look loud or heroic, but it really is. Will survives, not because he's the main character, but because he is capable and he has endurance. Next, let's talk about Joyce Byers, who has her love at full volume. Joyce Byers loves her kids like it's her only job, because honestly, it kind of is. She's a single mom, she works a part-time job, or even a full-time job, but her life revolves around her kids. From the second that Will goes missing, she refuses to believe he's dead, even though everyone around her tells her that she's wrong, and everyone thinks that she's losing it, including Jonathan. But she refuses to stop. She talks to Christmas lights. She sets lights up around her house and talks to Will and finds her boy. She yells at police officers. She literally walks into another dimension to get her son back, because Joyce loves in a way that is loud, desperate, and fearless. She's led by her love for her boys, and she would do anything for them. This is established in season 1, episode 3, Holly Jolly, when she is so willing to communicate through the Christmas lights, even though she is dismissed by everyone around her, and it demonstrates her trust in her emotional intuition over what logically makes sense. Joyce's protection of Will is also intense and visible. In season 1, episode 8, when she enters the Upside Down, that is an act that solidifies her as a mother whose love defies fear and reason. She will do anything for her boys, even if it doesn't make sense. We also know that she loves her boys deeply, and this is shown in the scene where she goes into Castle Byers, where she took a day off to take Will to see The Exorcist. We know that she loves her boys and will do anything for them. And this pattern continues in season 2, when Joyce is the first to recognize Will's possession in the Pollywog. She remains physical and emotional and is present when his condition worsens. She's not scared of him. Instead, she chooses to be there and support him like the good mother she is. The third member of the Byers family is Jonathan Byers, the kid who had to grow up. Jonathan doesn't get to be fragile. He's the oldest. Their dad left when he was young, and someone has to step up as the father figure. That someone is Jonathan. From the start, we see him working to help provide for his family. In fact, we know that when Will went missing, he picked up an extra shift for the extra cash because he thought that it would be useful to his family. We see him cooking breakfast for everyone, waking his brother up for school, and emotionally supporting his mother through Will's disappearance. The boy, in his grief, spends his college fund to make sure that his brother gets a funeral when he thinks he's dead, despite his mother telling him not to. Jonathan acts more like Will's father than a sibling. He defends Will, he comforts him, and he teaches him how to survive being different and that it's okay. But while Joyce is fiercely protecting Will, Jonathan is kind of expected to handle himself. He's established as being so strong that people assume he's fine until he lashes out, and that means that his pain often gets ignored. An example of this is in season 4, when he got so much hate from the fandom because of his actions, but remember that Jonathan has been through it too, and is probably nervous to tell Nancy that he can't go to college with her, at least not the same one. That wasn't a conscious choice, it's a sacrifice that he's making for his family in their time of need. Jonathan feels like he can't leave, he needs to stay with his family, and going to college would ruin that. Next, let's get into the relationship between Jonathan and Will, which I'm calling the protector and understander. What makes Jonathan and Will special is that they seem to just understand each other. Jonathan knows what it's like to be different or be an outsider, and Will knows that Jonathan is a safe person he can talk to no matter what. Jonathan protects Will, but Will isn't weak in the relationship. Instead, he relies on Jonathan to listen, learn, and he trusts Jonathan wholeheartedly. Their bond isn't super loud or dramatic like some of the relationships we've seen in the show. It's quiet and it's solid. In season 1, we see Jonathan talking about how their dad calls Will a slur, which tells us something important. Will has been different for a long time, and Jonathan, he knows exactly why Will is seen as different, but Jonathan doesn't ask Will to explain himself, he doesn't push Will to label himself, and he doesn't make Will say anything out loud. It feels like he understands him. Instead of telling him that being a freak is a terrible thing, he tells him that it's not, and that moment feels like Jonathan saying, I see you, and no matter what, you're safe with me. It's heavily implied that Jonathan suspects Will might be gay, especially in season 4. In fact, CreelByler on TikTok pointed out that Mike and Will have a heart-to-heart scene in season 4, and Jonathan can be seen listening to the conversation between the two boys with a Coke in his hand, something that season 5 has mirrored with Will looking in the hospital room with Robin and Vicky. And I thought this was really interesting because I had never noticed that before, and it helps establish that Jonathan knows that Will is gay and accepts him anyways. We also get the pizza freezer scene, where we see that he's trying to let Will know that despite his struggles with his sexuality, he supports him anyway. Instead of questioning Will about his sexuality, we see that Jonathan chooses to protect him, because he knows that the world is cruel. And you may be asking yourself, why does this matter? This sets up Jonathan's characterization beautifully. We know that Jonathan grew up with a father who was cruel and dismissive, so Jonathan makes a choice and becomes someone different. He becomes someone gentle, patient, and someone who loves without condition. And even as Will gets older and struggles more, especially with his feelings and his identity, Jonathan never pushes him. Next we have Will and Joyce's relationship. Will and Joyce share an intensely emotional bond built on trust and unconditional love. Joyce's belief in Will's survival sustains him, but Will's endurance sustains her as well. While Joyce sees Will as fragile, the series repeatedly shows us that Will's strength allows him to survive horrors that would destroy anyone else. Their relationship highlights the tension between protection and recognizing the resilience in Will. Joyce and Jonathan function as partners in survival rather than a traditional parent-child relationship. Jonathan supports Joyce's belief in Will without question, while Joyce depends on Jonathan's stability. The dynamic reinforces Jonathan's role as a caretaker rather than someone who is often cared for. So in conclusion, we know that the Byers family isn't perfect. Joyce loves fiercely, but sometimes unevenly. Jonathan sacrifices himself quietly, and Will, the kid that everyone underestimates, survived things that would destroy most people. Together they show us that strength doesn't always look tough or loud. Sometimes it's endurance, sometimes it's understanding, and sometimes strength is loving someone without asking them to explain who they are to you.